in the hidden world beneath your skin, something extraordinary happens when you feel overwhelmed. Imagine this, a single skin cell just beneath the surface, exposed to nothing more than your emotional stress. No injury, no infection begins to change, not mentally, but biologically. It shuts down certain genes, ramps up others, and starts releasing chemical signals. It pulls back from growth, stops repairing damage, and begins broadcasting a silent alarm. That cell is speaking a different language, one shaped by millions of years of evolution. And it's not alone. In that moment of stress, every cell in your body listens, reacts, adapts, because what you experience as anxiety or shame or grief is not just in your head. It's a cellular conversation, a molecular translation of emotion into biology. Here lies the paradox. If stress is supposed to be psychological, then why does it leave such deep physical scars? Why do people under chronic emotional stress heal slower from wounds, catch more infections, suffer higher rates of heart disease, and even show signs of accelerated aging in their DNA? Why does the mind's burden become the body's breakdown? For decades, this was considered a mystery, a vague connection between mental state and physical health. But now, that mystery is cracking open. What scientists are beginning to uncover is as stunning as it is unsettling. Every cell in your body appears to listen to your emotional environment, not metaphorically, literally. Hormones, neurotransmitters, and immune signals carry messages from your mind to your organs, your skin, your gut, even your chromosomes. And when those signals carry distress, even abstract ones, like humiliation, social exclusion, or fear of failure, the body responds, as if under siege. It switches on an ancient biological protocol, the stress language, a set of chemical instructions that shift your body into survival mode. Growth slows, repair halts, inflammation spikes, and over time, this stress language begins to rewrite how your body functions, sometimes permanently. This is not a metaphor, it's molecular biology, and it changes everything about how we think of anxiety, trauma, and resilience. Stress isn't just something you feel, it's something your cells hear. And in the journey ahead, we'll decode how that happens, how emotion turns into inflammation, how thought alters immunity, and how healing may begin, not by silencing stress, but by learning to understand the language it speaks. In the 1960s, a Hungarian-Canadian endocrinologist named Hans Selye changed the way we think about stress forever. Through meticulous experiments, Selye identified what he called the general adaptation syndrome, a predictable pattern of physiological responses that the body initiates when exposed to any form of stress. His work revealed that stress was not simply a mental or emotional state, but a physical process with profound effects on the entire body. He showed that under stress, the body mobilizes hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, triggering a cascade of changes. Inflammation rises, the immune system becomes suppressed or dysregulated, metabolism shifts to prioritize immediate energy needs, and vital functions like digestion and repair are temporarily sidelined. This discovery was the first glimpse into a hidden dialogue between the mind and body, one conducted through chemical messengers that instruct cells about the world outside and inside. These messengers, however, are not random or chaotic. They carry essential information. When cortisol floods the bloodstream, cells don't just passively react. They interpret the message as a signal about their environment, safe or dangerous. This biochemical communication informs every cell whether to conserve resources, to prepare for injury or infection, or to stand down and focus on maintenance. At the genetic level, this translates to profound changes in gene expression. Genes involved in growth, digestion, and tissue repair are silenced, while those that control inflammation, heightened alertness, and survival responses are switched on. It is as if the cells are reading a biological script written by stress, hormones dictating how the body adapts, or, when chronic, maladapts to perceived threats. This complex interplay gave rise to an entirely new scientific field, psychoneuroimmunology, which explores how thoughts, emotions, and social experiences influence the immune system and overall health. Far from being mere metaphors, feelings like fear, rejection, or anxiety have measurable effects on immune cell function. In today's world, where chronic stress is rampant, whether from demanding jobs, poverty, systemic discrimination, or profound loneliness, researchers have found that immune cells show altered behavior even in the absence of physical threats. For example, people facing long-term social adversity exhibit increased inflammatory gene expression, making them more susceptible to illness and slower to recover. These findings reveal a startling truth. Our biology is not shaped solely by physical exposures or genetic code, but by the emotional landscape we inhabit. So the question arises, if every cell listens and interprets these emotional signals, then how much of our biology is sculpted by what we feel rather than what we physically do? Are our bodies, at the most fundamental level, repositories of experience, translating invisible psychological stress into tangible molecular changes? And if so, what does this mean for how we understand health, illness, and the deep connection between mind and body in the modern age? A revolutionary breakthrough emerged from researchers at UCLA that has profoundly reshaped our understanding of how emotional stress imprints itself on our biology. They identified what they called the conserved transcriptional response to adversity, or CTRA, a specific genetic pattern that activates in response to perceived social threats. Unlike the immune responses triggered by wounds or infections, CTRA is uniquely sensitive to emotional experiences, social rejection, isolation, chronic fear, and loneliness. This genetic signature reveals that the body's cells interpret psychological stress almost as if it were a physical attack, switching on a molecular program designed for survival in hostile environments. The CTRA pattern is marked by a striking molecular fingerprint. Genes that promote inflammation are upregulated, ramping up the body's readiness to fight injury or infection. Meanwhile, genes responsible for antiviral defense are downregulated, suppressing the body's ability to combat viruses effectively. At the same time, genetic pathways involved in growth, tissue repair, and metabolic maintenance are dialed down. This coordinated shift prioritizes immediate survival over long-term health and restoration. The problem is that while this response was adaptive in ancestral environments, where threats were often physical and acute in today's world, these threats are frequently abstract and chronic. Social stressors don't cause wounds, but the cells respond as if they do. The implications are profound and unsettling. Chronic activation of the CTRA pattern lays the biological groundwork for a wide array of diseases, from cardiovascular disease to accelerated cancer progression, from autoimmune disorders to cognitive decline. When the body remains locked in this emergency mode, inflammation becomes chronic and damaging rather than protective. The very systems designed to heal and defend begin to deteriorate. This realization introduces a troubling dilemma. Our bodies evolved this stress response to protect us from real, immediate danger. But in the modern world, emotional and social threats are pervasive and often intangible. Are our cells misreading the signals, overreacting to emotional pain as if it were a physical assault? Is this molecular hypersensitivity a biological mismatch, a vestige of evolution clashing with contemporary life? This dilemma forces us to reconsider how we view stress and illness. It challenges the notion that health is merely the absence of pathogens or injury, highlighting instead the deep interconnection between mind and body. It also suggests that the chronic social stresses many face today, whether loneliness, workplace pressure, or social exclusion, are not just psychological burdens but active biological assaults. Understanding this reveals an urgent need to decode not only how stress reshapes our genes, but how we might intervene to restore balance in a world where our ancient biology often battles modern realities it was never designed to face. In our evolutionary past, the body's stress response was a vital lifeline, a finely tuned survival system that helped early humans escape predators, endure starvation, and navigate harsh environments. The sudden surge of adrenaline and cortisol primed muscles for fight or flight, heightened senses, and reallocated resources toward immediate survival. But today, the triggers have shifted dramatically. Instead of charging beasts or natural disasters, our stress systems respond to emails piling up in inboxes, looming deadlines, social comparisons on screens, and the relentless noise of modern life. What was once a protective emergency system now finds itself activated repeatedly, often without physical danger, pushing the body into a constant state of alert. Adding to this complexity is the striking variability in how individuals respond to stress. Some people exhibit intense inflammatory reactions to seemingly minor pressures, while others navigate identical situations with relative calm. This divergence is shaped by a constellation of factors. Early childhood trauma can sensitize stress pathways, making the body hypervigilant to threats. Attachment styles forged in infancy influence emotional regulation and social perception. Socioeconomic status not only affects access to resources, but also shapes chronic stress exposure. And epigenetic inheritance means that parents' stress experiences can biologically influence their offspring, altering gene expression patterns in ways that affect stress, resilience, or vulnerability. These layers reveal that stress responses are not universal but deeply personal and intertwined with life history and social context. This biological reality intersects with a profound social conflict. Certain communities, often marginalized by race, poverty, or systemic discrimination, carry heavier biological stress loads, a phenomenon captured by the weathering theory. Chronic social disadvantage accelerates aging at the cellular level, increasing risks for hypertension, diabetes, and other age-related illnesses much earlier in life. The body's survival system, intended to protect, becomes a driver of health disparities. These findings demand ethical reflection. Should healthcare systems recognize and address emotional and social environments with the same urgency as nutrition, exercise, or medication? If biology is shaped by social reality, then healing must extend beyond the clinic walls. Yet, despite mounting evidence, stress is frequently trivialized or pathologized in public discourse. It is often reduced to a mere psychological inconvenience, or worse, blamed on individual weakness. This misses the crucial truth. Stress is a cellular emergency broadcast system, evolved to signal real danger. When chronic stress is misunderstood, society fails to provide adequate support, perpetuating cycles of harm. The challenge is to shift cultural and medical perspectives to see stress not as a moral failing, but as a profound biological dialogue, one that requires compassion, systemic change, and scientific rigor to decode and heal. Only then can we begin to reconcile our ancient survival mechanisms with the realities of modern life, turning what once threatened us into a pathway for resilience and restoration. The most profound and unsettling twist in our understanding of stress is that it doesn't merely cause temporary harm, it fundamentally reshapes who you become at a biological level. Chronic stress reprograms your immune system in ways that ripple across your entire body and mind. White blood cells, which normally protect you from infections and repair damage, can become altered by prolonged trauma. Instead of acting with precision, they may turn hyperreactive, attacking healthy tissues and fueling inflammation without cause, or, paradoxically, become desensitized and fail to respond adequately to real threats. This misfiring immune response is no random malfunction. It's a learned pattern engraved deep into your cellular memory. This reprogramming helps explain why so many major diseases are now understood through the lens of stress biology. Depression, for example, carries an inflammatory signature, elevated cytokines and immune markers that affect brain chemistry and mood regulation. Autoimmune diseases, where the immune system turns against the body itself, occur more frequently. In individuals with histories of childhood adversity and chronic stress, cancer progression, too, is influenced by this biology. Stress signals can suppress the immune cells responsible for detecting and destroying tumor cells, effectively accelerating the disease's advance. What was once seen as health, immune dysfunction, cancer, now linked by the common thread of stress-induced immune reprogramming. Perhaps the most haunting realization of all is that this stress language isn't merely reactive. Your cells don't just respond to past trauma, they anticipate future danger. They shift into defensive mode preemptively, as if bracing for an assault that may never come. This biological prediction creates a body trapped in a loop of chronic mistrust, where immune defenses are constantly on edge, inflammation simmers perpetually, and healing is impaired. It's as if your entire system lives in a state of siege, unable to fully relax or regenerate. This rewiring is not destiny, but it is powerful and persistent. The mind-shifting statement that emerges is stark and profound. Your body doesn't just remember trauma, it prepares for it even when it's not there. This realization forces us to reconsider health not as a static state, but as a dynamic, lived experience shaped by history, perception, and biology intertwined. Understanding this truth may be the key to breaking free from chronic illness and reclaiming resilience on the deepest cellular level. Emerging research offers powerful hope. The cellular fear encoded by chronic stress is not fixed or irreversibly, can be unlearned, but only if we learn to listen deeply to what our biology is telling us. Recent studies on mind-body interventions reveal that practices like mindfulness meditation can actively reduce the expression of the conserved response to adversity CTRA genes, dialing down the inflammatory and defensive programming that stress induces. Similarly, loving-kindness meditation has been shown to boost anti-inflammatory markers, fostering a biochemical environment of calm and repair. Purpose-driven, living engaging in meaningful work or community lowers cortisol levels and shifts cellular responses away from threat and toward growth. These findings underscore a crucial principle. Emotional safety creates molecular safety. When the brain perceives connection, acceptance, and trust, it sends signals that cascade down to the cellular level, quieting the body's ancient alarms. Social support plays an equally vital role. Physical touch, shared presence, and empathetic connection directly downregulate threat circuits in the brain, reducing amygdala activation and sympathetic nervous system arousal. These neural changes translate into tangible benefits for immune cells, which then lower their production of inflammatory signals and ramp up repair processes. The experience of being held, seen, and understood is not just metaphorically healing, is biologically healing. The body, it turns out, is exquisitely sensitive to social cues and able to reconfigure its stress responses accordingly. At the heart of this process is neuroplasticity, the brain's remarkable ability to change throughout life, and reversibility, meaning that gene expression patterns can shift in response to new experiences and environments. The body is not trapped in a permanent stress state. Given safety, connection, and intentional practices, it can recalibrate, rewiring its cells and circuits to live in balance once again. This reframes health as a dynamic dialogue between environment, mind, and body, rather than a static condition. Perhaps the most profound insight here is that the body does not need us to simply ignore or suppress stress. Instead, it needs us to understand it, to speak its molecular language, and to send new signals of safety and connection. Healing begins when we listen not just to the symptoms or emotions, but to the deep cellular conversations shaped by millions of years of evolution. In that listening, we find the possibility to transform fear into resilience, isolation into community, and threat into safety, not only in our minds, but in our very cells. Every cell in your body, despite having no eyes, no ears, and no brain, of its own, is exquisitely attuned to the emotional currents that flow through you. It knows deep within its molecular machinery when you feel loved, safe, and connected. And when you don't, this silent awareness, this profound biological sensitivity, reveals that what we call emotion is far from being merely a fleeting feeling or abstract experience. Instead, emotion may be one of the most potent biological forces we carry, shaping us at the most fundamental levels of life. It is the language through which our body listens and responds, a dialogue as old as evolution itself. What if the true power of the human body is not only its capacity to heal, but its capacity to listen carefully to the signals we send it, to the stories we tell ourselves about who we are and what we deserve, and to the hidden language of stress that shapes our very cells. In this listening lies the possibility not just of survival, but of transformation, the chance to rewrite the molecular narratives that govern fear and resilience, isolation and connection, harm and recovery. So, as you stand at the threshold, between mind and body, between story and cell, ask yourself, if your cells are speaking, what are they saying? And more importantly, what are you telling them in return? This is the quiet, profound conversation that shapes your health, your future, and ultimately, the very essence of what it means to be human.